Thank you. So I changed a little bit the narrative of the story to make it less technical and more, I won't say entertaining, but just to give you a journey, the personal journey I had to this project. So as it was mentioned, my name is Henri Nyakarundi. I was born in Kenya, but grew up in Burundi. For those who don't know, it's in East Africa, right next to Rwanda. Fast forward, at 13, I found out I was a refugee. And how did I find out I was a refugee? My mom sent us on a trip to Kenya, and I was carrying this passport, and we got stopped at the immigration for 3 hours until my grandfather came, and he was living in Kenya, and signed us off as the guardian while we came in. So that's one was my first shock of my life growing up. And again, fast forward, in 1996, I graduated from high school, and we found out that me and my sister was gonna go travel and study in the States. And that was the best day of my life at that time. I thought, wow, this is it, man. I'm going to the American dream. And my mindset was different than what it was today. I landed in DC in September 1996. And again, fast forward, I'm just giving you some short stories, but fast forward 2008, that was the second time I came back. My parents live in Burundi to this day. So I went back home to visit my parents for the second time. And this time I was a father, a girl, and I brought my daughter with me. And I was amazed by the amount of cell phone there was on the ground. It was just amazing that everybody had a cell phone at that time. At that time, it was more feature phone, as it is compared to today, obviously. But it was mostly feature phone. Everybody had a phone basically in town, and I had my BlackBerry. For those who remember those days, BlackBerry was the hot commodity. It no longer is, but I was proud of my BlackBerry back then. But one of the biggest challenges I had was charging my phone. I had to carry my charger with me. I had to ask anytime I was at the bar or at an office, I had to ask somebody to charge my phone for me. And around that time, I decided that I was going to go back home. I had spent enough time in the States. My mindset at that time had changed. I started seeing growth in Africa, building everywhere. A lot of my friends were moving back, not just from Rwanda, but from all over Africa. But I wanted to find a project to do. It's very hard when you go back home, but you don't know what you're going to do. So I was like, what sector am I going to get in? And I was looking at the agricultural sector, I was looking at the energy sector, and farming was not going to be my thing, so I scratched the agricultural sector, and energy was very interesting to me. But I didn't want to do the traditional renewable energy project that I've seen, import-export of solar panels, battery. I wanted to truly innovate a product and create a product. And I remember clearly at the airport, I saw this charging station. It was I don't remember, I think it was in Amsterdam, but there was a charging station. So when I went back to the States, I was based in Atlanta. I went back there. I spent 3 months researching for a product. Initially, I wasn't planning to develop my own product. I had no experience in developing product. I'm not an engineer by trade. And I spent 3 months online researching. And I couldn't find anything that was remotely close to what I was looking for, which was solar, obviously, could charge a certain amount of phone, up to 20, and was mobile, meaning portable. Because one of the challenges in Africa is if you do a micro business, especially a street business, as they call it, stationary business is very tough. So I couldn't find anything. So I was like, what the heck? I had some savings from my previous business I had. And I was like, well, how hard can it be to build a product? I mean, come on, it's solar panels, a box, a bunch of wheels you put in, top maybe 30 days, 60 days. So I went online again, and truth be told, without the internet, I wouldn't be speaking here about this story, because the internet really changed the game, especially for me, to search for engineers, to search for designer. So there's a very famous website called elance.com, where you find freelancer for any kind of work or product you want to develop. And that's where I went. I went and looked for a designer first, found him in California. Then I thought the designer could build the whole thing. He told me, no, I'm just designing your stuff. And I said, fine. I said, what do I need to do? He said, well, you need to find an engineer. I said, okay, great. I went on Elance, found an engineer. I found one in Poland, believe it or not. He didn't even speak English, so he was using his son to translate what I was telling him, and using his son to translate what he was telling me. Yeah, very funny story. So fast forward, that was 2009. 3 years later, we had the first prototype. As soon as the prototype was done, I packed up my bag, bought a one-way ticket, sold everything I could sell, give back to the bank what I couldn't sell, and moved back to Rwanda. Initially, I wanted to go to Burundi, but unfortunately, things changed. So I decided to go back to Rwanda. And as you can see here, that's the first prototype. This on the right, you see it's on the marketplace called Nyabugogo. It's the biggest marketplace in Rwanda. So the first kiosk, I actually worked on the kiosk because I wanted to learn, first of all, the business case. Initially, I thought I was going to make $1 per charge. I quickly realized the first day that 10 cents was the max that people were willing to pay for charging. So that changed my business model really quickly. But it was very interesting. For 60 days, I worked on this marketplace, and I learned so much. And one thing I learned quickly, that charging alone was not going to be a business case. So I had to quickly go back to the drawing board. Another challenge we had was the initial prototype I built was just not good for the African market. It was not robust. They didn't understand the functionality. For example, if you can see, the charging on the first prototype is made at the top of the kiosk, which is was a big issue, I learned later, for security issue, for example, where people can come and grab the phone and run away. So we had some issues we had to fix. So I went back to the drawing board and decided to hire a designer from Rwanda this time. And they built the second version of the kiosk, which had a much bigger capacity on the solar panels, almost double the capacity. The design, you can tell, was much more sophisticated. Now you had a connector. If you look at the bottom, you'll see there's a connector where now it can be connected to bicycle, but there was still some functionality issues. Another thing we learned was that we're using what we call a micro-franchise business model. So what does that mean? That means it's very simple. We hire, train, and monitor low-income people to operate those kiosks. And we focus mostly on women and people with disabilities. Why? Because they're the most vulnerable groups on the continent. They're the ones who need the most economic opportunities. And women specifically perform much better on those kiosks than the men. And I learned that the hard way also. In the beginning, I was just hiring anyone and everyone that was looking for an opportunity. And that was the biggest mistake also I've made. Obviously, you can tell I like to share my mistakes, so anybody who wants to be in business, at least they'll learn something. But one thing I learned is poverty is not just an economic issue. It's also a mindset issue. That's one thing I've learned, because you can help someone, and as soon as they start generating money, if they don't know what to do with this money, if they're not trained of investment, if they're not responsible, you have limitation to the impact you're going to have. So we've changed our model, and I'll briefly talk about that. For example, now we don't hire below the age of 25. We've noticed that between 18 to 25, they're just not that serious. They don't know what they want to do. They're not as focused. We've noticed also that women with kids are much more focused than a young woman. So all those things were put together on our recruitment process. Another thing we added during that time was a monitoring program. It's great to help someone, it's great to have a kiosk on the ground, but how do you know they're performing? How do you know that they're actually working? How do you know that they're providing good customer service? So we developed a monitoring process and behind it we're building an algorithm that basically rate all our micro-franchisees. So finally, we had to do something. We had to redesign the kiosk that not only was robust, but can also perform, how can I say that, in a long period of time. Meaning, you don't have to do maintenance on the regular basis. So we got lucky. I don't like that word, but I'll use it for this conference. But we got lucky. We got a grant from Autodesk Foundation, and they gave us through a connection called Catapult Design. They actually came to Rwanda for 9 days to talk to all of our micro-franchisees and understand what are the challenges they had with the kiosk. And then we finally found a company in Germany that actually took this design and made an actual final product. And that's the one right here. And you can tell the design is much different. We added some features that we didn't have before. For example, we have a speaker system. We're now moving more into distribution of content, audio content, digital content. Instead of 80 watts panel, now we have a 150 watts panel. The wheels are not traditional wheel. If you look at the previous picture, you see we were using regular tires. So one of the challenges we had was, when they stay still for a long period of time, the air just, it gets flat. So we had to send guys sometimes 3 hours away just to pump the tire for one of our guys. So now we have those special tires that don't need to be pumped. We can put branding on the kiosk now. So when a customer they come facing the micro-franchisee, not charging on the side. If you look on the left, you'll see that the charging is at the bottom now. So it has a much better security feature. And finally, we're working on adding what we call IoT technology. So another challenge we've had was, how do you monitor this kiosk without having to send somebody all the time on the different location where they are? So we added what we're working on adding IoT technology. So we're gonna have several sensor technology on this kiosk. We're gonna have GPS sensor, we're gonna have temperature sensor, we're gonna have charging sensors, so we'll know how many phones are getting charged in real time. And finally, we're gonna have motion sensor, because one of the things we wanna know is how much traffic those kiosks gets in real time. Right now, we estimate those traffics based on the conversation we have with our micro-franchisee. And I'm gonna end with, before I end, we develop an app platform. Because as I mentioned earlier, one of the challenges was charging alone was just not enough. So we shifted our business model where we wanted to build what we call a one-stop shop kiosk. One of the things we've learned on the ground, especially in rural areas, is there's a lack of efficiency of service distribution. Most small business or small vendors sell 1 or 2 services at a time. If someone wants to charge, they have to go to one location. If somebody wants to buy some airtime or mobile money, they have to go to a different location. If somebody wants to do government service, they have to go to the government office. We're able to bring all those services under one umbrella. And we're the only one doing it right now in East Africa. Because convenience is key. We're saving people time, especially the farmers, for example. Instead of them having to walk all over the place before they go and collect their goods, now they can get all the services they need. And the fact that the kiosk is mobile is very easy to implement. It doesn't require any infrastructure to be built. So I just want to end with and that, I know that data was shared earlier, but By 2050, obviously, population in Africa will double. 50 or over 50% of the population will be living in rural or semi-urban area. As of today, there's around 400 million people in Africa that is living in poverty. And one of the things we're fighting right now is that if nothing is done to create jobs for the low-income people, if nothing is done to create opportunity, economic opportunity to the youth, then the youth will take care of us. And I don't mean that in a good way. And I truly believe micro-business, innovation, technical innovation, micro-business, which is innovative business model, is one of the key, not the only key, but it's one of the key to solve this problem. Thank you very much.